You look at Harry's track record, he has gone out of his way to make enemies to rile President Trump. He has been incredibly disrespectful, and he has also been pushing a political agenda. Harry always wants the best. He always wants to be half in, half out without. So we will be in a position where we end up paying for his security.
Prince Harry's U.S. status back in focus. After fresh clash with Trump camp, Harry's future in the United States has once again come under scrutiny following renewed political controversy and fresh pressure from conservative groups demanding transparency over his immigration status. The Duke of Sussex, who relocated to California after stepping back from royal duties in 2020, now finds himself at the center of a growing debate that blends immigration law, political activism, and unresolved tensions with both Washington and London. At the heart of the issue is whether Prince Harry accurately disclosed past drug use on his U.S. visa application, a question that has refused to go away since the publication of his memoir, Spare, in which he openly described experimenting with substances earlier in his life. Conservative legal groups, most prominently the Heritage Foundation, argue that if discrepancies exist, Harry could theoretically face serious immigration consequences, including possible deportation. Niall Gardner, a senior figure at the Heritage Foundation, has repeatedly called for the release of Harry's immigration records, insisting that no one is above the law, regardless of royal status. In a recent statement, Gardner reiterated that if Harry misrepresented information on his visa application, US authorities would be obligated to take action under existing immigration statutes. While no official action has been announced by U.S. authorities, the renewed calls have coincided with a series of public comments and political interventions by Prince Harry that critics say risk further complicating his position. Political intervention raises eyebrows. Controversy intensified after Prince Harry issued public criticism linked to comments made by former U.S. President Donald Trump. While Harry has previously spoken out on issues ranging from misinformation to online safety, critics argue that his recent remarks represent a sharper, more confrontational tone, one that places him directly in the crosshairs of American political debate. Royal commentators note that Harry had largely avoided direct confrontation with Trump-era figures in recent years, making the latest escalation notable. Some analysts suggest the timing is particularly risky given the unresolved questions surrounding his visa and the ongoing pressure from conservative watchdog groups. Prince Harry appears newly confident in taking on political figures in the United States, said Jack Royston, royal editor at Newsweek, in a recent analysis, but that confidence exists alongside persistent questions about his immigration status, which makes the situation unusually precarious. Royston added that Harry's willingness to challenge Trump-linked figures publicly could fuel further calls for scrutiny, particularly if political winds shift in Washington. Speculation over a return to Britain. Behind the political noise lies a deeper question that has quietly circulated within royal and media circles for months: whether Prince Harry is exploring a pathway back to the United Kingdom, at least part-time. Multiple reports have suggested that Harry has grown increasingly dissatisfied with life in California. While public appearances, red carpet events, and media deals present an image of success, insiders paint a more complicated picture. Sources quoted by US and UK tabloids describe Harry as isolated, increasingly disengaged, and heavily reliant on speaking engagements rather than long-term projects. Some commentators believe that escalating tensions with U.S. political figures could provide a convenient justification for Harry to reduce his time in America. Under such a scenario, he could argue that political hostility or visa complications necessitate splitting his time between the U.S. and the UK version of the half-in, half-out arrangement that Buckingham Palace firmly rejected in 2020. If circumstances force him back, it becomes less about choice and more about necessity, said one royal observer. That narrative is far easier to sell. Impact on the royal family. Any return, even partial, would present significant challenges for the British royal family, particularly Prince William, with King Charles balancing health concerns and Queen Catherine gradually resuming public duties. William is widely viewed as carrying much of the monarchy's future-facing responsibility. Royal sources suggest that Harry's re-entry into the UK spotlight, especially under contentious circumstances, could create fresh instability at a time when the institution is attempting to project continuity and restraint. Security remains another unresolved issue. Harry has repeatedly argued that he requires taxpayer-funded police protection when in Britain, a claim rejected by UK courts. Critics warn that any compromise could reignite public anger, especially during a cost-of-living crisis. Life in California under the microscope, adding to the scrutiny. Page 6 recently published a detailed report examining Harry's daily life in Montecito, California. The article, citing sources close to the set, described the prince as largely absent from public life and increasingly dependent on Meghan Markle's projects for household income. One source characterized Harry as a kept man, suggesting that his professional output in the U.S. has been limited. since stepping away from royal duties. While Meghan Markle has pursued media ventures and lifestyle branding, Harry's own initiatives beyond the Invictus Games have struggled to gain traction. The report also suggested that financial pressures have led to staff reductions within their organization, fueling speculation about long-term sustainability. A local Montecito resident quoted in the piece described the couple as distant figures within the community. "They came with a lot of excitement," she said, "but that energy faded. People here don't feel a strong connection to them." Charity and credibility questions. Prince Harry has long positioned himself as a champion of charitable causes, particularly veterans issues. The Invictus Games remain widely regarded as his most successful and credible initiative. However, critics argue that other projects have failed to deliver meaningful impact. Questions have been raised about Harry's role in organizations such as African Parks and Centabale, with some commentators suggesting that his involvement has been largely symbolic rather than operational. Arkwell, once touted as a flagship philanthropic venture, has also faced criticism for limited transparency and modest outputs relative to its high-profile launch. "Service has become more of a brand than a practice," said one royal analyst. That perception is damaging, particularly when combined with political activism, public speaking, and image management. Prince Harry's reliance on paid speaking engagements has also drawn attention. He is scheduled to appear as a keynote speaker at the International Association of Privacy Professionals Global Summit in Washington, D.C., where he is expected to address digital governance, online safety, and the future of the Internet. The announcement prompted mixed reactions, with critics questioning his expertise on cybersecurity and digital policy. Supporters argue that his lived experience with media intrusion qualifies him to speak on privacy issues, while detractors see the engagement as emblematic of a broader credibility gap. Regardless, the appearance underscores Harry's current professional reality, monetizing his profile in the absence of stable institutional backing, censorship, and free speech. Debate. Harry's advocacy for stricter online regulation has become another flashpoint. He has consistently framed the issue as protecting children from online harm, but critics argue that proposed measures risk curbing free expression and enabling greater state control over digital platforms. Civil liberties groups have warned that age systems and digital IDs could have unintended consequences, including surveillance and data misuse. Harry's involvement in these debates has placed him at odds with free speech advocates, particularly in the U.S., where such proposals face strong resistance. A crossroads moment. 5 years after stepping away from royal life, Prince Harry finds himself at a crossroads. His American chapter, once framed as a fresh start, is increasingly overshadowed by political controversy, legal uncertainty, and questions about purpose. Whether the renewed focus on his immigration status leads to formal action remains unclear. What is evident, however, is that Harry's choices, political, professional, and personal, continue to reverberate on both sides of the Atlantic. As pressure mounts from conservative groups, critics, and even former allies, the Duke of Sussex faces a defining question: remain fully committed to his life in America, or quietly engineer a return to the institution he once sought to escape. For now, the answer remains unresolved, but the scrutiny shows no sign of fading.